Once again, this episode is being brought to you by Diesel Fuel Prints. Diesel Fuel has been in the business since 1991, and Andy has been printing all of my stickers since the early 2000s. He's been a guest on this show, and he's a friend and somebody I've worked with for a long time. So I can highly vouch for his business because I use it myself. Highest quality, weatherproof stickers, easy online ordering, and quotes on any size and shape sticker you can think of. Full color printing and 125 black and white stickers start as low as $25. Free shipping on all orders at dieselfuelprints.com. And my listeners get a 10% discount if they use the promo code AWP2021. Check out Andy and his stickers. He does a great job. Let's get to the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is art director Tim Ford. Tim and I have been friends for over a decade, and he was my landlord for a long time in my Echo Park apartment. If you are a friend of mine in the LA area and you ever came to my old place, you probably met Tim. Tim is an incredibly talented and accomplished guy. He's been in the film, TV, and music video industry for, 25 years. Great guy, super, super smart. We sat and talked for like 3 hours, so I had to edit this like way down because once we get to chatting, we can't really stop talking. As always, all the stuff for the show is in the description down below. Links to the merch, the Patreon, the guest links, all of that stuff can be found in the description. Please check it out. And wherever you are listening or watching this podcast, give us a like, a share, or a review. And let's get right to Tim Ford. Super great guest, good friend of mine. You guys are going to love it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. Today's guest is a good old friend of mine, Tim Ford. Tim was actually my landlord for a number of years, but that is not a very good description of our relationship the whole time that I lived in his building. We became friends really fast, and we're like family at this point. But Tim is a director and an art director and production man. He's like a super awesome creative dude, designer, all sorts of things. Hey Tim, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, yes. I go by production designer a lot now.
Is that the official? I
don't know what is official anymore. I think that you actually would want to know your take on this. Have you run into this is happening a lot now where somebody is, I'm an actor, director, yoga teacher, entrepreneur, and I feel like that's not a thing of our generation. Right. That's not like I guess I always feel a pressure I've done a lot of things, but I always feel a pressure to identify in one way. And sure. I feel like maybe that's not the way you do it anymore. Like you're supposed to, what do you think? You think you're supposed to name the things? How would you introduce yourself now? Podcaster, artist, musician?
No, not at all. I'm definitely not a musician. I was never that. I was in bands, but I was never a musician. It's almost always artist, designer, illustrator, pretty much. Because those are the three ways that I make all of my money. Yeah. And I think, if I had to put my finger on it, I would guess that the way Hollywood works now, you can't always do it with one hat. You got to wear more hats if you want to stay working and if you want to make enough money to stay in this town. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you can't just come here and become an actor the way you used to be able to. Like you're going to do multiple things. And I think part of it is people also want you to know when you're talking to them that they're not an actor just waiting around to be an actor. Like, oh, I produce and I write, you know what I mean? Like they want you to know that whoever they're talking to, like, I have lots of different things I can do. So if you're looking, I can handle it. You know, I think people just want to stay busy. And I think that's a good way to do it for, you know, for the young. I think you're right. For the younger generation, you're right. Like, I don't think older previous generations of creatives in this town they're like, I am a director. You know what I mean? Like, even if they're an actor, they were like, I am an actor. And then sometimes I direct movies, but you know, it was like you were a thing.
The joke was always right. You know, I'm an actor, but I want to direct, right? Wasn't that always the joke? The previous joke.
The joke about this town for me always was, I'm a waiter, but I want to be a director.
Because now I'm sort of like, do we just list every job we've had that we've been good at? Like, so should I be like Tim Ford, like excellent at mowing lawns, like was rad as a video store rental clerk?
Well, but you have to be more creative. You're not rad at mowing lawns. You are you're a landscape expert or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
You got to give it. It's like, what is it? The janitor is now called the custodial engineer.
Yeah. I think they did that in like the 80s, I think.
Yeah. I seem to remember that. Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, at one point there was a janitor, and then not that long after there was a custodian. But I was like 10 years before you too. So like you're almost a different generation. Almost. But you're not Generation X though.
I think I am.
Are you?
I was born in 78.
Okay, yeah. Then I think
we're the same generation. I'm just like at the end of it, and you're like at the start of it.
But, start of it was 62. I feel like the start of it was like the early 60s, maybe 64 was the start of Generation X, and the end of the Boomers. And so I was like 69. So.
Okay. All right. So like I said, you were at the start of
it. you old. Do you have any before we get too far down the rabbit hole? Do you have any social media stuff you want to shout out where you want people to see what your online presence?
Oh my God, I am horrible at my online presence. I was like really excited about social media when it happened because like at the beginning, I felt more connected to people. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, I felt like it was another job that was taking up a lot of time that I wasn't as good at as I wanted to be. And I didn't really have
well, it's like part of your job now as a creative person. It's like, or as a salesperson or whatever, like social media is literally part of your job.
I'm bad at that. And that's what I'm bad at.
You definitely have a low level online presence, that is for sure.
I do. I have my Instagram account, which is at Tim Ford Filming, which if anybody wants to see some like 3-year-old photos, can see. And I have and if they want to send me a message that I get in 6 months, I'm there. And then it's just my online portfolio, timford.art, is what I do. But
do you keep that one updated at all?
Yeah, I'm very, very thorough at keeping my portfolio update. And I kind of just am old school in the way that I get work by reaching out to people a lot.
Well, you know everybody in this town. Like, anytime I ever meet anybody in the industry, if I drop your name, they're like, oh, I love Tim Ford. like your name's like a little bit of a passport.
Thank you. And maybe I would be better on social media. And sometimes I just don't know how I feel about it. Like I'm like,
yeah, no, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Is this good? Maybe zines were better for the world. Maybe we should go back to zines.
There's no shortage. I actually just had a piece. My first published piece of writing ever was in a zine out of Hawaii called New Wave Chicken. First time I'm now a published author, a writer. I wouldn't say author, a published writer, which is like, it's like one of those things, you know me, like I like to like do a million different things. And I always wanted to write, like I write okay, but I always wanted to find a way to like just have something published somewhere so I could just like check that off.
Did that happen to you this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And then this same zine Well, yeah, now it's last year. Jesus. Yeah. And the same zines, like they came back and they're like, yeah, we want to do either an interview with you or you can like talk more about whatever you want to talk about. And so I'm like, cool. So the zines are still alive, Tim.
We have this in common. I got published last year too.
Oh, nice.
I think I've mentioned this to you. I'm in a yacht co-op.
How did I not guess it had something to do with your sailing business?
I collectively own like 40 sailboats with like, I don't know, like 1,000 other people or something.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now. It's like
there is a newsletter, and I was commissioned to write a piece on a training cruise during the time of COVID. And I wrote a very in-depth, beautiful article that really talked about all our feelings and the silly nautical things that happened at the same time.
I have no doubt it was well written. You don't do anything unless you do it correctly. If I know anything about you, it's like if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right.
They were like, "This is the largest article we've ever received."
They're like, "Look, buddy."
I was like, I don't think I have the time to short. I don't
Listen
know
here, pal. This is.
I don't know how many people in my club actually read it, but at the end, much like you were just talking, I thought, well, I've been published now.
Check it off.
Fairwind Yacht Club newsletter.
I think I only have 2 more things on the list that are like creative bucket items, and that is to have a painting in La Luz de Jesus gallery. That is a lifelong goal. And I always say, like, I've never been able to get in there, and then I always remember that I never even tried. Like, I never submitted anything to that place. I think probably because I look at the work in there, I'm like, yeah, you're not. That's not you, buddy. You're not there. And then at some point, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Like, even if it's just one open mic, just so I can be like, check, and say that I did it. I figure I can tell a decent story that'll make people laugh. So I figure if I just went to an open mic and told a funny story, like that would satisfy the need for me to do that.
You know who got into that for a while?
Who?
Your other neighbor, Laura Hooper Beck, whom I borrowed this microphone from.
Oh, all right. Well, that makes sense. She's hilarious.
She had like a she and some other ladies who were really smart and pretty funny kind of did this thing at the Stories Cafe that was really nice.
Which one is the Stories Cafe?
Stories Cafe was like that bookstore in Echo Park.
Oh, right. That
kind of became a cafe and a bar, because like just being a bookstore, you can't run a business that way. You need to sell coffee and beer, and then you can survive. But they have a little back porch, and they had a little going. COVID kind of ended it, but they had a little going concern, just like a sweet little like stories comedy night that. You know,
how many people I would go. It was nice. There?
I would walk there. I miss it.
How many people could you get back there? I mean, none of
it's like 30, but I mean, you don't even need 30 to have a good time.
Yeah, no, 30 is way more than I would have guessed, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for a while there was Echoes Under Sunset, that was like right next to the tunnel. There was that little spot, and they had open mics all the time. And all the time, I was like, one night I'm just gonna walk down there and go in that place and sign up for the open mic and just get this over with. And then I guess they've moved, and the Echoes is somewhere else. Like, I can't. If I had to,
it's probably on Zoom.
Well, at the moment, yeah, almost certainly. I seem to, if I had to pull it out of the depths of my mind, I think there's somewhere on Temple now, like on the other side of the 101. They had like, because I don't know what would be in the spot where they used to be right underneath Sunset, but I'd assume all that stuff's got fancy stuff in there now too.
This podcast is getting really specific. There's like somebody in New Orleans listening to this going like, I don't care
well, actually, I have friends in New Orleans who have lived in Echo Park. So, maybe.
Oh, good.
Maybe those 2 people.
You're hitting your demographic. Well, I hope that somebody hears this and all of a sudden you get an email which is like, please come to our spoken word night, Mike Fisher. and then the museum reaches out and they say like,
yeah.
we are doing an exhibit on skulls, on some heavy metal skulls.
I'm in. I'm a shoe in.
Just for us.
I'm a shoe in. So digression yes. Over.
Let's get back to the focus of.
So yeah, I mean, the core of what I've known you to do is kind of like art direction, production design, where like, you know, you go onto the commercial and you figure out how to like build the set, dress the set, hire everybody to. Okay, here's a question I have. What's the difference between a production designer and an art director?
So the legal answer is the production designer is technically an art director. Like if you watch old movies, nothing says production design. It all says art director.
Okay.
At some point, and I don't know the exact history of this, but I think there were so many art directors on things that they wanted to recognize the head art director, and that became the production designer. Okay. In fact, I think it's still a designation that you apply for in the union. Like you can't, like you have to say, I am going to do this project as a production designer, and they come back and they say, we allow you to use that title on this project.
Got it.
So
is it a project to project thing, or once you're a production designer, you can always call yourself that?
It's probably like, I mean, there's a lot of old deals and contracts going back,
I know
30s,
from Christie's stuff. I'm aware of some of that
came
shit.
in and that changed everything. And so some people really like to just be called a production designer, and I don't get insulted either way by production designer or art director, because I'm happy to be doing the work.
Right. You know? Yeah, that's kind of always fun. How I am about.
It's fun work. Too. I enjoy it. It's, you know, I like it.
Yeah. So the production designer in the ladder, it's higher up the ladder than art director.
Yes. Although technically you're still an art director. You're just the lead art director.
Right.
For some reason, instead of the title lead art director, somebody came up with, you know what sounds more important? Production designer. Let's go with that one.
Yeah, I like it.
Now I am more interested in the history, and we'll probably look it up when we're done.
Yeah, I think me and you both have that in common, that we're like, this is a thing that I suddenly realized I don't know as much as I want to know about. And so I'm going to go read everything that exists about this one particular little thing. And then later on, we'll have a conversation about how much we know about it.
You just touched on, I think, the key to this profession.
To which
my
profession?
profession. Is that, like, you need to be a super curious person.
Sure.
Like you know, you need to like maintain that thirst for falling down like the wormhole to like learn about, you know, sometimes I've been on projects where all of a sudden, like, I'm calling like farmers in Nebraska and like talking about their equipment, because I'm trying to like find out what would really happen in a cornfield, and like, you know, and then you find out like, oh, the equipment they use in the Midwest is completely different than the farm equipment than they use in California for this reason and this reason, and then you go back to the director and you're just like, sorry, we can't get that. It's not, there's none in California.
So like
closest one is in Arizona, and they're in the middle of the harvest.
This particular harvester.
You're not going to get that machine.
And they'd never use a green one in Kansas. It's always a yellow one.
Exactly. and I
hey, look, I'm that person. Maybe I should be doing that job too.
No, and I've always been that way. And I always get, and like, I have to, and you know, sometimes you're like away and you assume other people are that way. And I always have to like remind myself, like when I go into the meetings.
This is why we're such good friends. We're like the same guy.
I have to remember when you go into the meetings, like, they don't care about that as much. They don't care about like the differences between the combine in Oklahoma and Kansas. Like, as excited as you are, don't bring that up in the meeting, because then everyone's got to kind of look at you like, why are you bringing this up?
They're going to look at you like the yacht people when you turn in your article, and they're like, well,
that is the dirty truth about production designing, or really anything in this world, is that the higher you're moving up, like the more you need to learn the art of meetings and writing a slick email.
Yeah,
because all of a sudden,
I know that from video games.
You think you're going to be drawing, all day and just being so happy just drawing, and it's like you're lucky if you can draw half the day.
Yeah, man, that happened to me in video games, where it was like all of a sudden it was like, oh, I don't do any of the work anymore. I just like look at spreadsheets and tell people what to do. And I could hate it. It made me hate it even more than I already hated it. And then I like sat down with my bosses and I was like, okay, I'm going to run this project, but you've got to give me actual work to do. I can't just. And so we came to a happy medium on the last project that I was on. But So production designer is that's what's going on the business card these days.
Yeah, actor, production designer, director, sound guy. Yeah.
I mean, because you have actually
I'm a production designer or an art director. Sometimes
you've directed a bunch of films too. So you are a legitimate director.
I am a legitimate director at all. That was my sort of lure into the business, is that at some point in high school, like around 10th grade, I think I started struggling with depression and being sort of like too young to like really understand depression and what that meant. And for some reason, I just got really enamored with music videos. Oh, this is a funny story. This is my connection with music videos, is that growing up in the 80s, we had a cable box, which was just a box with a dial on it. It was a brown box with a physical dial that would click, and it went from 1 to 30. And I was about 6 or 8 or something. And all I knew is that I think it was channel 18, that number 18 was my channel, and it was Nickelodeon. It was the very beginning of Nickelodeon. And
did you listen to my episode with the?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
It was a great one.
That was another good
I love
episode.
that episode of this
especially
show.
When you said like the green vegetable years or whatever, because it was like that was the Nickelodeon I watched a lot of, was the green vegetable years, because that was like
it was
18.
good for you, but not particularly likable.
It was I think for me as like a kid, like at this time, by the way, I thought that when you turned off the TV, the program stopped, and that when you turned it back on again, it would start right where you were. And I would prove this to myself as a 6 or 8 year old by turning off the TV, waiting, I guess, like 3 seconds, and turning it back on and seeing the same program. And that that was my experiment. That like confirmed to me that when you turn off the TV, it's in stasis. So those are the two things I learned, that you turn off the TV. And I think also the early Nickelodeon made me feel that, because I think they were on like such a loop of like these like
but they didn't have any shows. It was like
probably
5 shows. It was just constant.
It was like Pinwheel. I remember Pinwheel was the big one. I felt like Pinwheel was always on.
Yeah, Pinwheel.
So
was
18,
on all the time.
I'd turn on the TV, I'd turn it to 18, and that was just all the time there was programming that I dug, that was directed at me. At some point, down in San Diego, Cox Cable was the cable. Cox Cable changed the numbers. I did not know this. And 18 became like MTV. So that was the beginning of my love of music videos, is I just started watching music videos from a very early age. And I just remember thinking at the time, like, wow, Nickelodeon has really changed. And it was like Madonna videos and like, like all these early, like, what is it, the Buggles or the Bugles or the Boogies?
The Buggles.
The Buggles. Like it was all that stuff, like a bunch of early Tom Petty stuff. I remember all these Robert Palmer. Like
right.
Yes. So I guess I'm getting off subject here, but
no, totally not.
I think, and like, and my parents had me when they were kind of young. So, my dad didn't walk in and be like, this isn't appropriate. Like, he was probably in his late 20s at the time or early 30s. And he walked in and he was like, oh, this is rad. I'll watch this with you. So, I have all these abstract memories of like early MTV, which was like the remote control show.
Oh yeah. That was such a great show.
The Young Ones. So I was really into music videos and like I said, at some point in like junior high or high school, I started kind of struggling with depression a little bit, and sort of my outlet was watching these music videos. That was sort of like my fantasy, my like feel better about the world. Like I can't really make the connection,
right.
I'm not the first guy to feel better from listening to music, but
right. Or watching chicks in bikinis. Dancing to David Lee Roth songs or whatever.
Yeah. Those, I never really enjoyed those as much because I always felt like I would like get in trouble somehow.
Right.
Right. It was like, I actually like really was into the ones where they would do weird like visual tricks. Like, I don't even remember, like, if you remember the Wang Chung music video where it was just like, they'd like filmed them performing like 4 times and then edited it crazy so it like jumped around or something.
I don't remember that one, but
it's Everybody Wang Chung Tonight. What else would it be?
I always wondered what exactly that meant.
But
what are we supposed to be doing?
I think it's like everyone's like, come to our show tonight, Wang Chung.
I guess I don't know.
It worked a couple times and then they were done. But I became so enamored with music videos, and that's how I got my start. I mean, I was in high school and I was like, it occurred to me that that could be my career, and made laser focused, made that happen. Like,
I mean, that's what you did when you were done with film school. Like you just kind of
went to
started
college,
working on videos.
Went to film school, graduated early because I figured out how to get in at the music video companies before I was even graduated. So once I was I was like, I need to get out of college. Like, now I know how to do it.
Right.
So graduated, like, busted my ass to like get the credits to graduate early. And then just worked my way up from the mailroom, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, what was the first? Do you remember what the first music video you worked on that was like you saw on MTV and you're like, oh, holy cow, I worked on that.
The first one I worked on that I saw on MTV was NSYNC, Bye Bye Bye.
That's a pretty big one. What did you do on that? I mean, that's like a smash, right? That's like a monster.
That I think that was the third music video I worked on too. The first one I did was like an independent for some like independent local LA rap artists called Spy. Like don't remember the video was Spies Like Us was their rap song. I don't remember the name of the band. And then I worked on like a Toyota Tundra commercial, which I hated. I hated working on that commercial. And then I got my break. Somebody hired me for NSYNC, Bye Bye Bye, directed by Wayne Isham. It was insane. It was like working on like a pirate ship. Like, I was a PA. I was just like, at one point I was like driving around LA in my like 69 Datsun, like picking up food for like Justin Timberlake wanted some Chinese food. Like Lance wanted some like something from like a deli. And I would go into their motorhomes and like give it to them and like clown around with them a little bit. And
this is probably the early 2000s then.
Yeah. The funny thing is that my family hears, and one day I'm like driving or whatever, and I get a phone call and there's just breathing on the other end of the phone. And I'm like, hello? And it was my cousin who was like in junior high at the time or something. And she was like, I hate you. And she was like, I was like, well, Elizabeth, what? And she was like, I hate you so much. My mom just told me that you were hanging out with Lance. She's like, you don't even like him. I love him. You're there and you don't even care. It's not fair. And I hate you.
That's amazing. Of
That
course.
was probably the moment I felt like I arrived.
You're like, haha, I'm a Hollywood big shot.
Yeah, this is what I'm gonna like. And I was just a PA, so I was mainly like
getting people
whatever
food.
anybody told me.
Coffee runs,
back
Starbucks
then,
runs.
It was such like a just working on a pirate ship. Like music videos were so like Wild West, and it was like anybody could jump and do anything. Like, I mean, there was this moment where, if you recall the video, there's like an evil ex-girlfriend or whatever who has them all as puppets on a string and makes them sort of dance around, and she cuts the strings of each of them individually.
I vaguely
and they sort of like
that.
they fall down and they have their own like adventure in some area. And I forget who it is, but she cut some strings of one or two of the guys and they fell down in like a train. So I guess there was like a train up in like Lake Piru somehow we were up there in Lake Piru and there was like a train, and it was like they were like on the top of the train. The train was like going like around the lake or something and back. And at some point they came back to where we were, and MTV Behind the Music Video was there, everything. And I was like standing outside the train. The train was not moving. And all of a sudden the director, Wayne Isham, always wore sunglasses, never took them off. Possibly for drug related reasons. And all of a sudden he sticks his head out of the train and he yells like, "You gotta shake this train, it doesn't look right." Because they were trying to like film a scene and like pretend like the train was in motion and it wasn't matching. They're like, "You gotta shake this train, you gotta shake this train." So there's this train car, like a modern Amtrak car, and it is, I don't know how many tons it weighs. Tons.
Sure. Yeah.
Tons. And it's connected to some other trains. I mean, this thing doesn't want to move. But I was like, I had this old 69 Datsun at the time, like I said, and I'd been like, I didn't have enough money to get a new car, and I would just like fix that car. And I sort of like, and it had like leaf springs, and I was kind of familiar with leaf springs, and the train had like leaf springs. And I was like, and there was like a 2x4 by the edge of the track. And this guy's yelling at me to shake the train, and all the PAs are like looking and they're like so confused. And I was like, okay, guys. I shoved the 2x4 in the suspension system for the train. And I'm like, we can build on the momentum of the actual train. If we can move it a little bit and we time it, I get like, 4 strangers, PAs I didn't even know. This was like my second day on the job, my third job ever. And I was just like, we got to do this. Wayne Isham, the director, wants this done. and we do it, and we kind of like heave and we time it. And then pretty soon, this train is like shaking, and he sticks his head out. He's like, "This is great, more." And we're down there, and like we've got it dialed in, and we're like using this leverage on this train, and like we got the rhythm down, and we're like a team, and we're like booming it. All of a sudden, bright lights are on us, and it's Justin Timberlake and the behind the scenes like crew from like MTV Behind the Music Video. And he's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm just like over here with my homies. Like, hey, what's your name, bro?" And I'm like, Tim. And I'm like, doing this. And I'm like, just so like nervous and caught off guard and like whatever. And by the way, I've never watched that Behind the Music Video. I don't even know if I made the cut. But, and Justin Timberlake's like, "Yeah, Tim, man, what you got going, bro?" And I was like, "Nothing, man. Nothing.
Shaking a train, bro."
And he goes, "You mind if I jump in on this?" And at the time, Justin wasn't hip on physics, I guess.
I mean,
and he jumped in there and he just threw us all off completely. All of our momentum, all of our everything gained. He was just like, no. And then all of a sudden the train just grinds to a halt without the proper input. And the director sticks his head out. I was like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" Like, yeah. That was my baptism into the world of music videos, and it just went up and up from there. And yes, and so I moved up to like started like production coordinating, production managing, producing, then directing, and was really kind of like traction there and was really enjoying it. And then like record labels failed. MTV wasn't really about
Napster happened.
yeah, like just things went from $1 million, $500,000 to like, hey Tim, we got $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, dude. Album cover art went from like, hey, we've got like 25 grand to like, we've got like $250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing a lot of work for Disney, and because parents would steal music for themselves, but not for their kids. So like kids' music still had budgets. So I kind of was in this little like tide pool eddy of music videos where I could still do music
for
videos.
like Disney Channel and like the Disney Channel,
it was all
singing
for
children.
It was all for Disney Channel stars, and it was like this. It was to sell the DVD release of their movie. So it would be like, we're releasing, I don't know, Snow White. We're taking this kid from the channel. We're taking this song from Snow White, doing like an upbeat remix. And the formula was like a performance space with the kid and a kind of a story with the kid, and then intercut with scenes from Snow White or whatever. And I did like over 2 years, 6 or 8 of those, and kind of did some other stuff with Disney. And that's kind of what, well, I think I'd been doing art directing my entire life naturally.
Sure.
Like, I think I was just that kind of kid, like the way that like I would play with my friends. It would be like, let's turn our bedrooms into a zoo or whatever, you know. It was just like, let's, you know,
I feel you, man. Like, it sounds familiar.
The best day in my life was when my parents would buy a new appliance, you know,
and you got a box.
You'd get a cardboard box. And I remember like once I made like a cardboard box airplane, once I made like a cardboard box grocery store. And then like made all the vegetables to put in the bins and everything. Like, so I was always kind of doing that. And I would, to a certain extent, I was kind of doing that for my own videos that I was directing. And then in the Disney stuff, I kind of really started, because the way that Disney would work is like, I always feel like Disney's like a little bit of like a Hydra head. There's so many different divisions. So the way it would work is before we would shoot, we would have to go do a presentation in front of like 30 people. Here's legal, here's S&P, here's the channel, here's films, and 30 executives sit in a room, and we would have to do a presentation, and like everybody would like, don't do that, do this, don't do that. I don't know about this. Don't listen to that guy. I'm superseding him and saying, do it. And so after a couple of times,
what do you guys think about Superman wearing basketball shorts?
Dude, this was the best one. We were doing Cinderella, and he was like, some executive was like, okay, so what if the music, there's like a record scratch and the music video stops, and then like the animated mouse starts talking to the star from the TV show, and is like, so hey, like what about this and that? Like that's like what the guy said. The mouse says like, hey, what about this and that? And it's like, we're shooting A's, and you want someone to like hand animate like this mouse like talking to this like kid from, you know, Hannah Montana or whatever. Dude, we were just like,
yeah, I sat in way too many of those meetings in the game industry.
Yeah.
Way too many.
So I got kind of good at knowing what their expectations were going to be. So then I started getting heavily involved in the art department a little bit in the jobs that I was doing for Disney, and, liked it, and eventually found my way more into that world, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, when we first met, you actually got me some gigs doing art department stuff on commercials. I always really had fun doing. It was really hard work. It was really hard work. And the thing that most people don't realize, first of all, for people who don't know, art department are the people who like put the sets together. They shop for all the stuff that has to go on the set. They go to prop houses and pick stuff up. They're like moving furniture. They're like, you kind of construct the on-screen environment.
It's everything you see that's not an actor or their outfit.
So if you're looking at Tim's video right now, like art department has to go pick up those bikes, from the place that has the bikes.
Yeah.
And they have to make sure they're the right bikes, and they have to place them on the set and the rug underneath and all
Take
those
the logos
plants.
away.
You have to Greek off the logos. Like that is what art department does. So in a production,
this is my personal collection of work plants.
Those are props.
These are all fake. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, you never walk into a house without some art for a wall, without a couple of fake plants, and like a throw blanket. Like, those are your three basic things. Like, no matter what the director, no matter what anybody says, you got to have that stuff on the truck.
For sure.
So I just, it actually costs a lot to rent fake plants. So I've just been building up a collection here that I just sort of like,
that's
throw
amazing.
them in my
They
car.
literally are props. Like people will see those in some other thing at some point.
Yeah.
But like art department, you are the first one working every day and you're the last one working every day.
Yeah, we're kind of first in, last out. Yeah.
And so it's a long, hard day. And a lot of those days, if you're like on location at a residence, like you have to move all of the people's stuff out of their house. And then you have to move all the prop stuff in. And then people film all day. And while that's happening, you're running around like a maniac. They need this, they need that. That plant doesn't work. You're running back and you're running all day long.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, when everybody's done shooting, you've got to move all the prop furniture back out of the house, and you got to put all the stuff back in the house that the homeowner owns, and every single thing has to be in the exact same spot. If there's a china cabinet full of china that you had to move, every piece of china has to go back in the exact right spot. And it is a long, hard day's work, but it pays well, so at least there's that.
It's a beautiful mosaic of people who do this work. And there's definitely people who get off on the OCD-ness of putting the homeowner's stuff back. Sure. You know, we all have pictures on our phone, and, you know, it's like somebody will just be happier than a pig in shit in front of a bookshelf. Like that bookshelf behind you. There are guys I know who would be like, I'm on that bookshelf. That bookshelf's all me. And like for an hour, they'll just put everything back exactly right.
Well, we shot a commercial here and they used the inside of this studio for the set. And so somebody did do that. Somebody pulled all the toys off of my shelf and put them all back. And they did a pretty good job. They didn't get all the Hot Wheels where they're supposed to go, but that's okay. I wasn't upset about it. So yeah, like art department it's a hard job. And when I was doing it for the brief time that I did it, I figured out really, really quickly, the art directors that I worked with, I figured out really quick that because I had been an art director in games and I've been an art director at record labels, I was like, well, that's the job you want. You want to be the art director or the production coordinator. And I figured out that I had all the skills to move to that spot probably quicker than some other people, because pretty much everybody else I worked with in the art department were like, they were writers, they were directors, you know, they wanted to be cameramen.
They were actor, writer, directors, yoga instructor, entrepreneurs.
Yes. Yes. And they were doing art department because that was how they were getting their foot in the door. And I was like, well, I probably could put in 4 or 5 years and get myself into a position of being an art director. But, you know, part of my thing was, that wasn't what I wanted to do with my time. I wanted to, you know, draw skulls and stuff. But I did like that work, and I obviously appreciated that you helped me get that work. But in the meantime,
it is not hard to get me to help somebody get into the film industry. The film industry is always looking for like eager hearts, positive minds, and strong backs.
I swear to God, dude, when I moved to LA when I was 25 years old, and when my first or second video game job ended and I was trying to decide what I was going to do, if I had known that was a thing you could do, I had no idea that was a thing you could do. If I'd have known, I would have gone into that field in my 20s and 30s in a heartbeat and made more money. And I made a good living in the video game industry and made more money and like worked on stuff I would have been way more interested in working on for sure. But what has happened in the intervening years with me and Tim is that Tim now has put me in contact with people. I've talked about this on the show before, so people probably heard me talk about it, where I do graphic design work for productions. Like if they need, like if a commercial happens at a restaurant and they need a fake menu, I will design that fake menu, or like, a college acceptance letter, or, a pallet of Frosted Flakes, or whatever it is. Like I do graphic design work for commercials and TV production and movies and stuff. And Tim actually hired me on for the movie Palm Springs that came out over 2020 pandemic movie releases that weren't in the theater. And I had some work in that with another friend of ours, and I was on the team that designed the beer packaging for that Andy Samberg carried around throughout the entire movie. And it's funny, before we got online, Tim is up for an award for his art direction on a music video for the band Brockhampton, and one of the beer cans.
Well, it hasn't been officially nominated yet.
Oh, it hasn't. Okay. But one of the beer cans from Palm Springs, I noticed, got a cameo in there.
Yes. It's called 18th Hour Questionable Decisions. The way that's, and I've actually looked to see if anybody's made that connection yet online. And nobody has, but we had some Akuparas left over, and they were kind of in a box of stuff. And
Akupara was the fake beer that we developed.
Akupara was the fake beer from Palm Springs. And I walked over to that set while they were filming it, and there was Akuparas spread on the ground that somebody had put down there because they saw it in like a box, and it was like hour 18 or something.
Oh, I see.
And we were just sort of like, those do look really cool there. Let's see what happens.
That's awesome.
But no one so far has noticed, or except for you, and got angry about it, and I hope they never do. But yeah, those are both two. Yeah, we've submitted Brockhampton for an ADG award, which I hope we get. It's sort of like was eligible to be submitted by a little bit of a fluke. Like it was so low budget, but the union came out and like flipped it.
It doesn't look low budget. It looks like it's practically a TV set you guys built for this.
Thank you.
It's crazy. It's crazy cool. The song is called Sugar. Is the video out? Like, for people to,
the video's been out.
So look for the video for Brockhampton called Sugar.
There's actually two videos.
Well, there's probably a PG version, and then there's probably that hard R that I saw. Hard R.
We did our hard R version, and I think that, and it was like the guy who's kind of started the band, Kevin Abstract, and I guess he had this dream and he wrote it down, and he wanted to do that as the video. But it's got some hard R elements in it.
It opens hard R.
There is nudity. There's aliens. There is sex. There's hell. There's guns.
There's boobs.
There's a topless man and a topless lady. There is a man butt. And there's an amazing set. Also,
the set. I mean, there's more than one, right? There's like 3 sets.
Yeah,
from what I could tell, it looked killer.
So I think they were getting a lot of heat. Brockhampton, they're kind of thought of as a little bit of a boy band, which I think they kind of embrace. It did sound like a boy band with a couple rappers in it to me. I think they like met on a chat room. It's like the most like millennial like I love it. It's fantastic. Like they met online. It was like they were all from like rural Texas or something. They all like rap. And they started a rap group, and they are successful. And
I had never heard of them before, but that's not surprising. I have not paid attention to modern.
Yeah, it's not your go-to.
It's definitely for like 17-year-old girls, I think. Primarily.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely for under 18 people. So I feel like they did this one because I think they are artists at heart, and they wanted to stay artists at heart, and they wanted to like stay edgy, and they did this music video. And then like 2 months later, I think somebody was like, "You idiots. Most of the people who like you can't watch this thing because it's got sex and violence in it. And the other sugar video is like them in a white psych, like acting silly in front of like a dance rehearsal mirror. And it ends with them like running around playing tag in this like silver warehouse. It's all shot at Milk Studios. So that was not me. I did not do that one. That's
you
the
did
video
the cool alien invasion
the under
one.
18 crowd, but I did do the video for the over 18 crowd. And well,
there's that weird thing. Like if you get your Miley Cyrus's and your Christina Aguilera's and your Britney Spears, and like they're famous when they're young and their whole audience is children. And then at some point, they're no longer a child. Their audience are no longer children. And they cannot stay in people's minds the same way that they always have. So they have to do something. They all go through that phase where they're like, I'm grown up now and you have to deal with it. And like Christina Aguilera puts out something where she's like basically naked. She's no longer wholesome. Or Britney Spears, it's like, you saw that with Miley Cyrus bad for like a year where she was just like, I'm not a child. I'm doing all this grown up stuff. And then, and then at some point the world accepts that they're now an adult, or the world is like, nope, you're never going to be. And they go away forever. You know what I mean? So I guess I can understand if you are a musician and you're in your first, if you are Brockhampton or you are in sync or any of that, at some point you're going to have to do something different to break out of, being seen as like, oh, that's stuff for kids. I mean, it's just got to happen.
I'm sure there's meetings about it.
Yeah, that's why I'm always sympathetic.
I don't think
to
Miley
people
Cyrus
going
woke up and was like, today's the day I'm going to like dress crazy.
Right.
And
she's a business, and that business needed to change its perception.
The manager was involved. There was a meeting. They were like, okay, we're going to launch the Grow Up in 6 months. This is what we got to get in place. Like,
Britney Spears, she's going to make out with Madonna on stage. And then somebody was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then they did it anyway. And
yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was all.
It was much like the meeting where somebody thought that Mickey Mouse should talk to the star in the middle of the video. It was a very similar meeting.
It wasn't Mickey Mouse. It was just one of the Cinderella mice. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But as you recall, they're a major character in Cinderella. No, and you know what? Let's go off on this tangent, because I've just noticed this in cartoons in a certain. So I'm watching a lot of cartoons right now, right? Because my son is 3.
Yeah, you got 3.
And we were watching. I've noticed this phenomenon in SpongeBob SquarePants and My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, both of which are excellent cartoons. Excellent.
SpongeBob is in the top 5 all-time best cartoons in any era.
You got to check out My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, my friend. It's not marketed towards you, but try hard not to become.
I'm not a brony,
dude. I think everyone's a brony inside once they open their hearts. It's amazing. My son's definitely a brony and proud. But so, because now as we consume this media, we're ripping through the seasons, right?
Sure.
Because it's so accessible,
you don't have to wait every week to get a new episode.
That my son has a completely different experience than me in that. Like, I remember growing up, it was like the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, you had to wait till you had to get up at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday to get in front of that TV, or you're gonna miss something.
Yeah,
and then you weren't gonna get to see it again until rerun time.
Yeah, or someone had a VHS, you could track it down, or whatever, or you went to Comic-Con and there's a weird dude who has the episode of Voltron you've never seen, but the thrill of the hunt, that was great. I missed that. And so if you watch SpongeBob or My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, season 1 through 3, like 1 through 4, totally targeted at kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, they're like, some executives like, look, I know this is a kid's show, but we're making so much money off of 20 to 30 year olds or 30 to 40 year olds or whatever. The shows start maturing. And it was like season 4, season 5 of SpongeBob. I was like, I think we need to go back to season 1. He's not ready for some of this stuff. It's like these concepts are too grown up for him, and the animation is a little too intense. And the same thing is happening with My Little Pony now. I think we're on season 4, and there's like we just saw an episode where there was a reference to I'm spacing on the Coen Brothers bowling movie. What's the name of it?
Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski. There's a hard Big Lebowski reference in season 4 My Little Ponies, and it's like, what?
Some writer snuck it in or something.
It's integral to the plot. It was not snuck in.
Oh no. Okay.
it was obvious.
Oh wow.
And there's a lot of instances like that where it's like very mature concepts and things being presented in this kids show, and it's sort of like this. So now I sort of think of it less as this meeting where managers get together and be like, it's time for Miley Cyrus to grow up, and more like, this is the will of the universe. Things get older, things mature, things age. You can't hold something back, whether it's Hannah Montana or My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic. It's gonna grow. It's gonna grow. That's the natural way of the universe.
Dude, that's hilarious. I mean, if this show keeps going for 10 years, a parallel between Miley Cyrus and My Little Pony will never be made again. As to like, to speak a little bit to that, like SpongeBob for me, and anybody who's listened to the episode where I talked to Scott Barber, who did the documentary about Nickelodeon, is that I mean, SpongeBob's Ren and Stimpy. It's just like a slightly more mellowed down version of Ren and Stimpy. And so it's always kind of, for me, it's always kind of been, for a kid's show, definitely more subversive than, the fucking Care Bears or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
there's a lot of subtlety going on.
Yeah. And then there's like a lot of those like gross out shots, and, like SpongeBob, I don't know. Like if I have watched more than 10 episodes of SpongeBob ever, I'd be pretty surprised, but I love SpongeBob all the same. And I love what SpongeBob represents. And I'm happy that there was an entire generation of kids who got something special like SpongeBob, because they could have not had their Scooby-Doo. You know what I mean? Like, we got Scooby-Doo, and that was like a big deal. Like Scooby-Doo, like before that was Bugs Bunny, and it's like, we were very fortunate, and things didn't look good for cartoons for a long time, because things were like, if it wasn't something that was licensable to toys and lunchboxes and all that stuff, it didn't get looked at in the cartoon world. Everything was some crappy licensed toy or something, or video game thing or whatever. And then Nickelodeon started Nicktoons, and then you got Ren and Stimpy, you got Doug, you got, was the other one, Rugrats. And then those things became toys, other than the other way around. And so it was peril for the generations of getting new cartoon characters. And I'm glad that SpongeBob was able to come out of Nickelodeon, that kids, my kids who are like, reaching their 30s, like that, they have that. And I don't know, dude, what do kids have now? I mean, My Little
Pony, Friendship is Magic.
But My Little Pony, it's like, that's still like an old licensed thing. That's 30, 40 years old. Like in the 80s, My Little Pony was a thing, and it was built to sell toys.
Yeah, it was originally a pony that was marketed to girls that you would brush. It was originally like, this is a doll you can brush the hair. And then there was a cartoon. But I mean, honestly, it's kind of amazing. Somebody got a hold of the property and was like, I'm going to make an amazing cartoon.
An entire universe.
They did a really, really, really good job with the property. It's like its own thing. And it's sort of weirdly like opposite, like most of our lives, like everything you watch, it's like men are the dominant characters, and then there's some women in the show. They flip that on its head. It's like mainly ladies, but then like there's like some important background dudes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of it went initially, like you said, it was adult. So it was definitely a licensed towards, towards, girls forever. But you're right. Like, I think that they realized that there were a lot of like dudes who collected My Little Pony toys, so they kind of had to start including dude stuff in it, like grown men who were like weirdly
I
into
think
My Little
men
Pony.
started collecting the ponies on the strength of the reboot of Friendship is Magic.
Oh, right. When did that show come out? The reboot.
I don't know. Well, in my
I know
world,
this much
last
about
year,
My Little Pony.
I don't know. It's probably like 10 years ago or something. I'm not an expert.
Okay.
I just somehow because Orson just sees all the things and he goes, I want that. And I'm like, cool, let's watch it.
Yeah. I think also there's a little bit of like people who produce children's entertainment realize how much of that adults also have to ingest. And so there is some effort to add content. So
yeah, you talked about that on the Nickelodeon show, where at a
Yeah.
certain point they were putting as much work as they would have done for an adult show.
Right. Yeah. Well,
You know?
yeah, exactly. Like they were hiring like real writers for real TV shows,
Yeah. I mean, like I try to be like, all right, he's gonna watch My Little Pony and I'm gonna do the dishes or whatever, but it's like you get caught up in the episodes pretty quickly. Like, you should take the pony challenge, Mike. See if you can look away.
Oh my
Next
God.
thing you know, you'll be drawing skulls on the hip of a pony.
So yeah, My Little Pony. Yeah, we'll see if that ever comes up on this show ever again. My Little Pony. Maybe
Well,
Miley
you know,
Cyrus
if you have me back,
we'll get an update on what's going on in My Little Pony world
over in
well, at least he also likes SpongeBob, so he's got that going for him.
Over in Equestria. Yeah.
And
so I was really when you first told me about your podcast, you put it like that you at that time you were like, I'm just talking to creative people. I'm just talking to like creative people in the creative world. And I thought that was really intriguing. Just a podcast about creative people and like creative processes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's going to be amazing.
Like how people, I'm like, we touched on this a little bit. Like, I am super interested in how different creative people achieve what they need to achieve. Because I know how I do things, and I know how I think most other things are probably done. But to hear people, like to hear a jewelry maker, to hear, a hairdresser, to hear a tattoo artist, different people who, like, how did they get to doing what they do? How do they do what they do? Like, just all, I mean, I find it completely fascinating. I like my own show because I learn a ton of stuff. And if anybody knows me, they know that I want to know as much about every single thing as I possibly can at all times. Like, there's no such thing as too much information for me.
And so that's what I think is amazing and the most compelling about your show. And I mean, we've talked a lot because we're easy talkers. I think we should focus up on creativity. It's interesting. Ever since you said that, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about like just the word and the concept of creativity. And like, I feel like to a certain degree, creativity kind of gets like, sort of like the artist to a little, like the creativity is like very much in the camp of the aegis of artist,
Mm-hmm.
like,
sure.
Oh, you're a creative, like you're this artist, like these divine things like come to you. And I'm kind of like, creativity is like a word for figuring things out.
Sure.
Which like everybody does every day,
sure.
And so it's interesting because this podcast itself, I mean, it's just really can encompass any profession. Like anybody can figure something out at their job. Anybody can figure out a better way to do something.
Sure.
There were times in my life when I didn't have enough creative outlets, and I would kind of make them in the weirdest places. Like there was a time, kind of like in between PA and director. Um, I had an opportunity to be a production coordinator, which is like basically somebody who does like middle management. It's like accounting. It's like you fill out POs, you fill out paperwork, you call people a lot.
I think that's what you were doing when you were helping me get art department jobs. I feel like that was kind of what you were doing.
Yeah. There was this story is about me production coordinating. I was doing a little art department coordinating to kind of get my foot more in the door in art department when that happened. But production coordinating was just art department coordinating, way more creative and fun than production coordinating. There was a time I was working for this company and like I got really frustrated at like some forms they had. I thought these like forms are stupid. And I think I just needed a creative outlet. And I started like redesigning the forms for these companies, like in Excel, like myself, like making my own forms. And I'd be like, these forms are so much better. And then I like realized that the way that it worked is that in the copy room, there were like all these shelves of these forms. And it was sort of like, if you just removed all of the old form and you just photocopied a bunch of your new form and you put it in there, that would be the dominant form.
That's going to be the new form.
Yeah. And I just slapped the company's logo on the form and so everybody thought it was like the official change. It was like one of those things. And like that was a time in my life when I think I was expressing creativity through like Excel. And it was like, and it should have been a time in my life where like I think at a certain point that was like a warning sign to me that I was like a little off track in what I needed to be doing. Doing that work was a means to an end for me, and I did become a music video director. But those were sort of like the less inspiring times of my life. And it's funny because like the thing I remember is like the Excel creativity, the like coming up with new forms. Like nobody else, zero production coordinators like out in the world are like inventing their own forms.
These
and, like,
forms need to be better.
As subversing the office staff to like make them permanent. Then at one company, all my forms that I made disappeared, and I realized that there was like a server with the master copy. So I like hacked into the server and like, got rid of their stuff and put my stuff on there. It was just like such a cry for help of like needing a creative outlet.
Oh my God.
But I think that's a way that I always like come back to it too. That's like whenever I might be stressed or like I'm on this big project that I feel like insecure about, is that creativity is also just figuring it out.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that's one of the reasons also why I have such a wide range of different types of people on this show, is that I do agree with you in that kind of everything about everything is how you decide to look at it, right? Like, I think people's perception of things sometimes makes them think like, oh, well, that's not a creative field. But like being a lawyer certainly has its moments of being creative. Being a doctor, it has moments of like if you're a plumber, you gotta be creative. I watched the guys plumb my laundry room. Yeah. And there was a lot of creative thinking that went into how they were going to make that happen. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, it's not like, like wrote on everything, like that. I know for me, like I couldn't exist in a plane in which I didn't have constant need to figure things out. Like I think I've probably mentioned it before on the show, and it's probably something that you may have noticed about me being friends for as long as we have, is like, as soon as I get good at something, I want to do something else. You know what I mean? It's like I mastered doing those ice hockey goalie masks, and then I never wanted to do it ever again. Like after 5 or 6 years, I was like, I've got this figured out. And now it's like you're a kid.
It's like you're a kid and like you get a video game and you're like, I could never imagine myself doing anything other than playing Super Mario Brothers. This completes me. And then you beat it, and you try to keep on playing it.
But once it's like trying to watch Usual Suspects a second time. Like, once you know the mystery, you can't watch that again.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's funny. I've never tried to watch that again. Maybe that's why.
There are movies like that I can do. Like I can watch LA Confidential over and over, even though I know, I know the twist, but it's just so well made and beautifully made, which is the same thing about Usual Suspect. It's really well made, but that is one of those reveals that you're like, God damn it, I never saw it coming.
So yeah, all right. I'm gonna link back to Brockhampton, or we can talk about Palm Springs too. Just sort of creative process. I think Brockhampton's interesting because again, it was this guy's dream. Like Kevin Abstract said it was a dream, and he had like drawn sort of out his dream a little bit, but it was very plain. You know, he drew two people making love.
Are those the drawings that I saw in the production?
Yeah,
thing?
Yeah, that's okay. What. I sent you those.
I liked those. I thought those were cool because they're so kind of outsider art.
He's an interesting guy. I liked him a lot. I don't know if you noticed this if you watched the video, but there's a point where one of the band members steps in through the window of the bedroom.
Uh-huh.
That's his verse. He's not he's not lip syncing. He just kind of steps into the bedroom and like looks around. And we were on set, and the guy stepped in through the window, and he was like rapping and like because Kevin directed it too, and he goes in and he's like, "That was sick, man. That was sick. Yo, this time just step in and don't rap. Don't move your mouth." And I was like, I've been around music videos my whole life, and I was just like, man, we've been here 16 hours. Like that does sound like a good idea. Like all of a sudden, like why not? Like we just had an alien like shoot this guy with a alien shotgun, and we did the take. The guy stepped in, just didn't move his lips, just kind of looked around, hands off. They finished the take. The rest of the band members are there, and they're just like, "That's it, bro. That's amazing."
That's awesome.
That's creative process right there. It's just playing around. It's just experimenting. But yeah, so all I had was that. There was no script. It was just that guy's drawings, and somebody knew that I'm not afraid to do low budget things. I like interesting work. Like my rule, basically, approaching my work is. The thing I'm most interested in is it interesting work? Is it with like cool people?
Mm-hmm.
Because let me tell you, those early days in music videos, it was like 10 years after like my in sync days when I realized, oh wait, everyone was on drugs. Like I was so excited to be there and so naive. I was just like, you'd look at somebody the wrong way, you'd get fired, or they'd yell at you, or like whatever. And I was just like, oh, I get it.
They were all on cocaine.
Dude, you want to know how naive I am? I was like 20 or something, or 22, like on my first. And these first music videos, we would go like 24, 30 hours nonstop, same crew.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is like a muscle you need to flex. Like, I'm doing grown-up stuff now. If I'm just here and I'm like working, and eventually you get used to it, and you're just awake for 30 and working for 36 hours, and you do it like once or twice a month. And that's what a film industry professional does. And you grow into it, and you build that muscle. And then like 10 years later, I was like, oh no, everyone was on cocaine or meth except me.
Right. Dude. Yeah. When I was in games, it would be like that. There would be like, okay, we're, like I wouldn't leave the building for 72 hours. And like, I'm not a drug person. I never used cocaine in my life. And it was like, I was the same way. I was like, oh, this is just how it is. And that sucks. I was like, ah.
So I'm like, is it an interesting idea? I care about that more than anything else. Is it decent? Is it fun people to work with?
All that I care about matters a lot
more. Those are the two things I care about more than anything else. And then finally, it's sort of like, how much money do you have? I would rather do a job like the Brockhampton music video that had interesting people and interesting ideas, and than do, like $1 million Apple. I've done $1 million Apple jobs, and they're great for their own reasons.
But there's a mortgage to pay. Look, we have that same situation going on in our house all the time. It's like, an Apple job, okay. Mortgage is paid for a while.
So yeah, I was like, I'm cool people, cool project, I'm on board. And it was originally really low budget. And I think the producers were saying it was like really low budget so much. But then at the same time, I think they were even not aware of the fact that they'd hired all these fancy people and told all these fancy people they had no money. And then we showed up to set the first day, and they had a 18-hour day scheduled. It was the first time in my life that the schedule said 18 hours. Usually they lie on the schedule.
Yeah, they lie and tell you 10. And
then it's 18. So I think everybody looked around at all the equipment and all like the high roller, like all like the pros that were in the room, and we're like, we're going to call the union. So even though I had so little money and so little resources, it did become a union job, which made it eligible to be submitted. So I hope it gets nominated. That would be really cool.
It's really cool. It's a really cool music video, and that's not something that happens very much anymore. A really cool music video.
Yeah, no, it's like we're the scrappy one of this year. But
I'm not from. I don't. You may not be familiar with. There's a British band called Idols that's around right now.
No, I love the name.
And they're kind of like.
They're always just ready to rock.
Well, they're
always on. They're always maintain. They're always on idle. They're ready. They're ready to go.
Yeah. Well, they're the first band. I've obviously been listening to punk music since I was 12 years old in the early 80s, and they're the first band in a really, really, really long time that did punk rock. That is definitely punk rock, but is so totally different than any other punk rock that you're like, is it? But it definitely is. They're absolutely fantastic. They're, for me, the last year, they've probably been the best new band. I mean, they're amazing. But all of their music videos are awesome. Like, when I turned Christy onto Idols, we were just watching YouTube stuff, and I just threw on a video. I was like, oh, you should see this. And then we just sat there and watched Idols videos for like an hour and a half. She's like, this band is so good, and these videos are so great. You should watch them just to check out their
100%.
Yeah.
That's on the list.
Fantastic.
With looking up the history of the term production designer. Yeah, so anyways, we're like the little engine who could in the award season. But so that's kind of like how it happened. And so they showed me these drawings that this dude made, and you should, I don't know, you could throw those in this video or something.
Yeah, but I'll see. I'll try to grab them and then stick them in with the all the online social media promotion that we do.
They're very generic, and the story is that the guy is making love with this lady. An alien opens the door, shoots him. Then other band members come into the room, do their verse. Then the camera goes into the guy's eyes. Now, originally, the guy who was making love to the lady was supposed to be one of the band members.
Yeah, I was wondering.
But they're all kind of young, and his girlfriend got wind of that, and she was like, "No way." So they had to cast a guy. So when you go into his eyes, the guy who's in hell, who's doing that verse, was supposed to be the dude who was making love to the lady. And then you come back out of that dude's eye. Then you come up through the ceiling and into the next floor, where there's a dude lying on a carpet, and slime is dripping on his face. And then you go up and you see another guy, and this is actually the director of the video, and the Kevin Abstract, and he's trapped on the ceiling with slime, and
it's dripping down onto the guy on the floor.
yeah.
Cool.
And then you're out in this we were supposed to be in this field in Texas, and I was like, crazy. All right. And so I was talking to the director, and at some point he was like, well, the alien's his lover. Because I was originally like, oh, the alien was dating the girl or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how cisgender I approached it.
I totally assumed that the I had it the way the director did when I watched it. I was like, oh, the alien's in love with the dude.
Yeah. Well, so the director goes, no. The alien is the dude's lover. And then he's so upset that he kills the dude. And I was like, oh, and from then on, and this is part of my creative process for film work, is often you only get like so much notes about the set. Like if you look at scripts, there's usually very little direction about what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get some visual references. I mean, a joke I have is that anytime an ad agency sends me a picture, I basically like say they're like, we want like a blue ball like this. I go into Google and I type blue ball and I do an image search, and like always it's like one of the first 5 items that the agency sends me. So I'll get that. I'll get the most cursory Google image search. So I kind of like, this is what I think is really fun, is I like to flesh out the story. And that's sort of like the play for me. And I also have to step back here. Whenever I say me, like film is like one of the most collaborative arts that there is. Sure. So I am always with other people who I bring onto the team, and we do this work together, which is really fun and really fulfilling. And I think a lot of people are attracted to film because they're looking for new families.
Sure. It ends up being that way for sure.
So,
well, when you spend 18 or 36 straight hours with somebody,
Yeah. So the minute this guy was like, no, the kid is so I eventually came up with this story immediately in my head of like, okay, like, first of all, we didn't have a lot of money, so it's a lot easier to do lower middle class or poverty when you don't have a lot of money. That kind of explains itself.
Sure.
And also, so the story I came up with was that this kid lives in like a double wide trailer in Texas and has been a sci-fi freak his whole childhood, and so the first alien they fall in love, and it's easy for him. He's already super into sci-fi. He's into NASA. Sure. He's into aliens. And I kind of had, and I was kind of like, yeah, he lives, and he's raised by his grandparents. And this room, all this stuff is his childhood room. Mm. It's like one of those deals where like he still lives in his childhood room. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't left that situation yet. And I kind of was like, and then you can see the living room a little bit too. And I kind of told myself a story like, okay, but he was raised by his grandparents, but then his grandfather died like 10 years ago, but like we still feel his presence, and we see like a hint of some like medical problems. I've got like an old like medical cane in the corner there, and but it's very much his grandparents' house. And then all of a sudden, now this is how I communicate with people. So now I'm not saying it's a lower income trailer in Texas or whatever. I'm saying to my team and to myself while we're gathering all these items, this is the story, which is not in the script at all, right?
Sure.
And we just say, this is this kind of person. This is the kind of stuff they would have. And it allows everybody to contribute, because now I'm not going, find me this, that, and this. I'm saying these are the people that were creating their space. Mm-hmm. And then we go from there. And so that was all a set. We built all that. That was not a location. So
it's incredible. I mean, you wouldn't know it's a set. It is really well done. Not only would you not know it's a set, you wouldn't know that it was set built on a budget production. I mean, it's fantastic. It looks great.
Yeah. Well, it's a very small set, but there's like, another part of my design process is, and all of this, by the way, like, I don't come up with, like, I listen to other people. A long time ago, I went to see an architect speak at an architectural school. And it was this lady who was giving a design presentation on her vision for the canals of Phoenix. Mm-hmm. and sort of like what her dream was for the famous like Phoenix canals and like what you could do with them instead of having them just be cement troughs, because I guess they used to be these very natural, very beautiful things. And she was like, what if we did this? And she was very big on saying, I approach every problem with, what are my assets? Like, what do I already have?
Mm-hmm.
And then building on that. And that kind of ties into, I was influenced at a young age. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Eames films, the Charles and Ray Eames films.
I'm familiar with Eames' design. I don't think I've seen any of their films, though.
Charles, I think it was just Charles, was super into like Super 8 stuff, like film. And he did all these weird little films. And at some point, like back before you could get everything at a click, some friend had like a DVD. He's like, have you seen these films? They're crazy. He did a lot of weird experimental stuff. And it was like, oh yeah, you spend one night just like eating takeout pizza and watching these weird Charles Eames experimental films. There's one film where it's like random visuals, but then he's like giving a commencement speech or something. And he had this thing that he said that was like, it was something about, I've never been forced to compromise, but I always get really excited about constraints. Or something like that, where he's or like he had this kind of embrace your constraints. Anyways, those two people had a huge impact on me. So whenever I start anything, I'm like, what are my constraints? So I can start working within that. And what are my assets? What do I have? So the constraint was we didn't have a lot of money, and an asset was, well, let me find some assets. And I was kind of poking around, and there was like a wood shop behind my spot, and I went, and they had all this leftover like faux wood paneling. And I was like, well, that's perfect. I'm going to grab that.
Now I got something I can start working from.
Yeah. And that was one of those moments too, where I was just like, this would be great if it like had wood paneling. That would really give it the right age. And, but that stuff's expensive. And then, I walked up on it and I was like, oh, this is great. And then there used to be this set rental place that had burned down. There was like, when you used to do like low budget sets, there was a set rental, IDF Scenery was the biggest rental place.
Let me guess, it was like sets. In Sun Valley or North Hollywood.
It was in Sun Valley, and it was a warehouse. It was a warehouse filled with sets, and guess what? It burnt down. And then I kind of asked around. This is another one of my creative processes, is that you can pretty much solve any problem with lots of phone calls.
Right. Well, that's how the entire Hollywood industry works. Lots of phone calls. All right, Tim, I'm going to let you go. This has been a fantastic talk. We dug down deep on a couple subjects. It's amazing. I appreciate your time as always. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It's fantastic. I look forward to coming back and filling up the hole.
Right. Yeah, we had we had some battery pack issues. And we had to do like a recharge where there's like a 20-minute gap here that I have to edit out for everybody listening. All right, man, say hi to Brandy for me. And and Jonas and Laura, and I'll talk to you soon.
Cool. All right.